What's going on, guys? Hey, we are back. We've got a brand new Preston Stewart video about the war between the USA and Iran, specifically over the Strait of Hormuz, is what it seems like now. But this is interesting. We've covered topics. We've covered this topic multiple times, and lately the information's just been so bad. It's been news outlets trying to push a certain narrative to try to I don't know, kind of try to sway public opinion, which, right, shocker, legacy news outlets swaying public opinion. But I mean, in the sense that it's just literally every other hour, they've got a new take on what's happening in Iran. So it's been weird, but we love Preston. We trust Preston. We're going to watch this one. I'm excited. And also, shout out to Preston, man. I just saw recently he was at the NATO summit and he got to get some one on one time with President Zelensky, dude. So cool, man. And frankly, he is one of the most well deserving for this kind of an opportunity because of how much he has helped Ukraine directly and indirectly between the hundreds of thousands of dollars he's raised in donations, vehicles, supplies, all kinds of stuff, and just his pro Ukraine rhetoric. So awesome. Shout out to Preston. Um, Hey, before we do jump into it, we've got our t-shirts still. If the Flamingos over Moscow and also the American for Ukraine. If you're interested, link in description. Discord, jump in that link in description. And obviously, please go check out Preston's channel, man. He's the GOAT. All right, let's see what's going on, man. Also, off the rip, tell me your vibes about Iran. Should the U.S. be there? Should they not? Should we be killing bad guys? Should we not?
So it looks like we're back at war with Iran, or maybe more specifically, we're in a war over the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, in just the past few days, the United States has struck around 300 targets, and Iran has fired as many as 500 drones and missiles at U.S. and allied locations across the region. I mean, we had the Memorandum of Understanding. I don't think anybody was actually optimistic about the direction that was going. We covered it on this channel. Didn't look good at the time. Right now, we are seeing the fallout as effectively what's happening here is Iran says they control the strait. It is up to them where and when ships go through. The United States says no, and shooting ensues. So it's pretty clear that right now the sole focus in this conflict is control over the Strait of Hormuz. So these U.S. strikes did not pick back up because of the Iranian nuclear program. They didn't pick back up because of the Iranian ballistic missile program or support for their proxies. These new waves of strikes took place because Iran exerted their control over this key waterway. Now, looking at the strikes that played out last night, U.S. Central Command issued a statement saying, quote, they've completed a new wave of offensive strikes against Iran, hitting dozens of targets at multiple locations with precision munitions to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking international shipping flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM forces struck Iranian military air defense systems, coastal radar sites, missile and drone capabilities, and small boats using U.S. fighter aircraft, naval vessels, one-way attack drones, and one-way attack sea drones for the first time. Hopefully we get some footage or specifications on that. This has been an interesting one. They say the Strait of Hormuz is a vital maritime corridor for global trade. Iran does not control it. U.S. forces are postured and prepared to ensure that freedom of navigation remains available to commercial shipping despite Iran's continued unwarranted aggression, harassment, threats, and arbitrary declarations. Now, we're going to get into what led up to this wave of hostilities here in a moment, but looking at the Iranian side, because this was not a one-sided attack, the United States carried out strikes. Iran has responded each time. The IRGC said, quote, the only way to open the Strait of Hormuz for vessels is to end the intervention of the U.S. military in this strait and to respect the sovereignty of countries over their own coastal waters. That is the theme. That is where Iran has dug in. That's where they stand. Now, overnight, Iran says that they carried out a number of launches against targets in Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain. A couple notable claims from Iran. And I want to stress that we have seen some footage and some pictures of things burning. Very clearly, some missiles hit something, whether those were intercepted and caused fires on the ground or actually struck their targets has not yet been verified from what I can tell. But according to the IRGC, they said they hit two U.S.-linked bases, or two U.S. bases in Kuwait. They said they also hit two air bases in Jordan, one, the Prince Hassan Air Base, saying they hit fuel tanks and ammunition depots, and at the Al Araz Air Base, said they hit American fighter jet hangars. Then in Qatar, they say they went after the El Adid air base with a 44 missile barrage, with multiple of those missiles getting through. And in Oman, they said they hit multiple radar systems that were monitoring the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE, for their part, says that at least 500 Iranian missiles and drones have been launched over the course of the past couple days in this most recent wave. Again, to stress, we do not have a verified battle damage assessment, and as of today, U.S. satellite imagery providers are still withholding data over those locations in the Middle East. Now, Iran
Something I just heard, and Preston might cover
has
this. Um, he posted this yesterday, and just last night I was hearing that, and we've known this to some extent, but that there are thousands of Iranian Shahed kamikaze drones in Cuba. And Cuba is way more than close enough to strike targets in the US. So I would imagine US military, Navy, Coast Guard are all just hunkering down, is setting up some crazy anti-drone assets over there on the coast of like the southeast, off of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, that area.
also claimed that in addition to these strikes, that they were able to inflict a number of U.S. casualties. U.S. Central Command addressed this, saying that there are 0 reports of U.S. service members' deaths or injuries in the region. All personnel are now accounted for. Now, diving into why this series of escalations has played out in recent days, the spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointed to Clause 5 of the agreement in the Memorandum of Understanding, where he says it is not open to interpretation, and the Americans should not make decisions based on their own interpretation. Now, I'll have the full text of the Memorandum of Understanding linked in the description below, and I'll put up some of it, or I'll put up Clause 5 here on the screen if you want to see what that says. A couple aspects here. It says, quote, upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days, only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. So, in fact, let's pull up a quick map to show you the area we're talking about here, this critical waterway that is the Strait of Hormuz. So we've got live UA map, Iran here.
Just out of curiosity, does anybody who's watching this video right now, did anybody believe anything about this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding? I'm curious, because maybe some of you do, and you have a valid reason as to why.
On to the north, the top part of the screen, you've got the Persian Gulf here, this body of water, Sea of Oman out to the east, Strait of Hormuz, this contested waterway, very congested and contested waterway here. So this is the area that Iran says that they have territorial control over, they have sovereign control over. The United States is contesting that, but when we look at the Memorandum of Understanding, one of the critiques that we brought up on this channel as well is it kind of kicked this down the road. It said, well, Iran start removing mines, if you would, sometime in the next 30 days. And over the course of the next 60 days, we'll get to it. But if you look at the actual text, and I'll put it back up on the screen here, you can see how, whether you agree with their stance or not, and I do not agree that Iran should exert sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think this is an international waterway that needs to be governed as such. But when you look at the text, you can see how Iran would view that as it is up to them. It is their right to control what goes through and when.
What do you think? Is that Iran's right to control this strait, this area of water that they claim is in their sovereign territory?
Again, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, quote, instead of allowing Iran to reopen the strait based on the agreement, the Americans have been cheating from the beginning, trying to circumvent the agreed-upon path with Iran through incitement and with the cooperation of regional countries. By doing this, the United States has violated the agreement, jeopardized maritime security, and exacerbated tensions and conflict in the region. Now, again, the key issue here, going back to the map, is that what's happened in recent days is there has been an uptick in traffic. And this is so frustrating and confusing, probably deliberately so. Is the Strait of Hormuz open or is it closed? And the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle. And just in the last 30 days, we've seen the United States, I think last night, the U.S. Central Command announced it is absolutely open. Kind of, maybe.
At your own
Iran
risk.
said that it's closed.
It's open at your own risk. You could take a kamikaze drone to the side of your cargo ship, but it's open. Go for it.
Not entirely closed. The truth is somewhere in between. It has been for some time. But the issue here is that Iran wants to control all the shipping moving through the northern portion, especially here through Bandar Abbas. And we've seen some satellite imagery recently showing that the bulk of traffic is moving through that area. That is where they can more easily exert control and exact tolls from ships moving through. What we've seen in recent days is more ships trying to move through the south. Many of those were then fired upon by Iran, trying to get them to push further north into their territorial waters. That's the source of contention here. And Iran has been and continues to fire on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. That's a problem. That has to be resolved. And again, that seems like the focus of what this war is all about right now. Now, shifting to U.S. Central Command's assessment of how this is all playing out, they're pushing back on the claims that Iran, I think 2 days ago, said the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. And again, I want to stress, we did not begin the war for this. This was not the core objective. And objectives
I'm literally writing that right now on my notes to talk about when we pause it.
changed throughout the war, no doubt, but it's notable how much of a backseat things like the Iranian nuclear program, their missile development, which it looks like they were probably digging up some missiles. I don't think that their production facilities are anywhere back to where they could be a viable source of munitions in the near future. But the missile program's not being addressed, the nuclear program not being addressed, the proxy forces not being addressed. Instead, the sole focus is the Strait of Hormuz. All right, so we kind of quickly and quietly gotten there. But U.S. Central Command put out a statement yesterday saying the Strait of...
Hold on, before we move forward here. That's one of the most frustrating points for me as well. The initial reason for going into Iran and striking Iran to begin with was the primary reason was for their nuclear weapon potential and trying to make sure they never have that opportunity. Now, by far, the number one issue is the Strait of Hormuz, which was never even an issue prior to the U.S. initiating this war. So I still agree with the United States' original aggression towards Iran to try to remove their nuclear capability. I will always support that. Iran has been proven nothing except to be bad actors, liars, and terrorists. The people, the IRGC, and the people who really make the decisions of the country, supreme leader or whatnot. So absolutely, I support them not having a nuke, and this is actually something that is agreed upon on both sides of the aisle. Democrats and Republicans largely agree upon this, with the exception of the fringes of these parties, the extreme right and the extreme left, who always find a reason to fight about something. So, absolutely agree with the initial aggression, but the U.S. caused this issue. Okay, other issues, other problems, other goals happen when wars start. Completely understand, just like Preston said. But because we caused this problem, we being the United States, then we being the United States needs to fix it. So I am personally happy that the United States is back in action, taking a more aggressive stance against this, because for the last few months, I mean, you could say since the beginning of the attacks in Iran, the U.S. has looked very weak. Now, yes, the U.S. has been striking an exponentially larger number of critical assets and infrastructure than Iran has done to the U.S. or the Middle East allies. But as far as negotiation and how much power Iran kind of seems to have influence over the U.S., they've made the U.S. look pretty damn weak. So I'm glad to see some strength coming back out.
Hormuz is open for transit. Quote, pathways for free transit through the Strait of Hormuz remain open. Iran does not control the international waterway used by commercial vessels to globally transport goods and energy. U.S. forces have facilitated the transit of 800 ships and 400 million barrels of crude over the past 2 months, adding that 140 ships have transited the strait in the past 7 days. However, that has fallen off a cliff a bit. Reuters just reported that 6 vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz on Sunday, the lowest number in 5 weeks. And we're talking about, going back 5 weeks, that's when the strait was effectively completely closed. So That's the situation we're in right now. Now, in terms of what to watch for going forward, it kind of all hinges on a change here in the United States. Are we going to change our strategy, or are we going to change our goals in this conflict? Iran has made their position pretty clear. And I don't think there's really anyone that genuinely believes that a few more strikes, a couple more days of attacks, is going to significantly change their calculation or change what we're able to accomplish here. It kind of boils down to, does the United States, do we increase pressure to try to accomplish our objectives, or do we reduce our expectations? Because we're stuck in this middle ground right now of, we don't want to go all out. We don't want to say put boots on the ground. We don't want to surge additional assets into the region and carry out continuous bombardment for day after day after day, weeks and months on end. We don't want to do that. But we also want to achieve all of our objectives with their nuclear program, their missile program, their support for proxies, and opening the Strait of Hormuz with no limitations. We are in the middle of those two right now, and it's not working. So we've either got this status quo, which from what I can see is trending towards Iran at the very least having a degree of control over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, note that yesterday ships were down to 6 passing through the strait because of the Iranian attacks. So we can yell and scream that the strait is open all we want. But when Iran can take a few actions and shut down shipping right there, that is Iranian control. It's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for our partners in the region. It's not good for the world, but that's the situation we're in. So if we expect something to change here outside of just, negotiations are on their way and we have disagreements and maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't, we have to change the pressure. That's it. We have kind of worked ourselves into a bind here. There's no clear solution in sight so long as we continue to carry out kind of the same operations and the same level of pressure and coercion against the Iranian regime that we've been using now for a number of months, and it hasn't gotten us there. So that's what we're watching for here in the coming days, but that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, P-Raw. Shout out to Preston again. So a couple things I want to cover, and then we'll end it here. There's, again, I'm very curious about your guys' opinions on all this, because I read the comments every single day, and this is something that these videos tend to get a lot of comments because can be some differentiating opinions. So something that I think is kind of a source of a lot of America's political, or a lot of American and, yeah, I guess Americans' political toxicity, is the fact that they think they need to always agree on whatever their party agrees on, right? So if the Democrats say, what's an example? So let me explain it like this. You can be a Republican or a Democrat, but still support or be against the war in Iran, right? You don't have to side with whatever the rest of the people of your party are saying. So, for example, I would consider myself a more conservative natured person. I tend to like more conservative policies, whether they're global or domestic. Now, because that said, I don't like calling myself a Republican because I don't agree with some of the things that the administration is doing, which is arguably the current administration is the head of the Republican Party. So, but that's okay. So my point is, these issues, they can be standalone issues, and they should be standalone issues that you base opinions off of, not based off of what your parents said, because your parents are Democrats and your parents always go with whatever the other Democrats say, or vice versa, right? So if you are a Republican and you hate the idea of the war in Iran, that's fine. So I guess that's my tangent, is this super segregated division of parties that is influencing people's moral compass is a massive issue in the United States. everything should be voted on, should be seen through a is this the best for the United States and the American people lens, not through a Republican lens, and what's best for Republican policy and um, Republican projects and who's going to be taking Republican office and who the next president is and all that bullshit. No, specifically the policies, and you look at it through a pro American lens, not a pro Democrat lens or pro Republican lens. Okay, now that tangent's over. Something that I see a lot of news outlets use this term proportional. They say that the US either is striking proportionally, meaning, okay, Iran launched 2 drones at a cargo ship, so the US should only respond with a proportional amount of force. I think that is such an absurd concept. We've heard this a lot with Israel and the terrorist proxies in their out in their area that Hezbollah launches, 3 missiles into Israel. Israel responds with 50. That's not proportional. And people get all up in arms like, that's overkill. That's insane. It's not proportional. War is not supposed to be proportional. It's not like if you're in a firefight with somebody and they shot at you twice, then you only shoot back at them twice. That's not how war or conflicts or combat works. You want to absolutely decimate your enemy and put your boot on the back of their neck and stomp them into the dirt. There should be no fairness. You should be biting and tearing with nails and scrapping to win no matter what. So it just reminded me when Preston was talking that there's a lot of this proportional talk that I think is absurd. It sets a precedent that, okay, if Iran only launches a few strikes, the US will only respond with a few strikes. No, if Iran launches 1 drone, we should absolutely obliterate everything that we have targeted in their region, in my opinion. Um, Also, that kind of leads me to no boots on the ground. Growing up, I'm 31 now, so the GWAT era wars and conflicts has been my whole life, right? And boots on the ground is always this such a negative has such a negative connotation. We don't want to put boots on the ground because this insinuates the loss of American service personnel's lives. Well, we have no boots on the ground in Iran officially, and there's still US service personnel getting very seriously wounded and dying. So I think, and this is probably more of a hot take, right? And I understand that, but I think the stigma of no boots on the ground needs to be removed. If the best way to eliminate our enemy is by putting the best trained soldiers of the United States military on the ground in that nation, I think that's what should happen. And I promise you, knowing so many soldiers, so many Marines, so many airmen, so many seamen in my life, that's what they signed up for when they joined the military. They didn't sign up to fix truck engines for 8 years typically, right? They want to be feeling like they are making a difference in a hot zone, doing what they signed their contract for. Now, so let them work, dude. It's absurd to me that there's so much fear of putting US boots on the ground. Nobody wants US troops getting hurt, wounded, or anything like that. Absolutely not. But who knows how many more could be injured or hurt if we don't take the proper steps and put boots on the ground and eliminate the enemy as soon as possible. Could it drag out for years and years and years, and then we just have this slow drip of American loss of lives like we've seen in the Middle East for the last 30 years? Again, that's my opinion. It kind of went off on a tangent here, and I know when I get a little bit more extreme in this type of ideology about smash the enemy, put boots on the ground, smash the enemy. I It tends to be about a 50-50 split in the comments. There's a lot of you guys that are like, yes, agreed, United States needs to show their dominance, peace through strength. Let's get after it. Let the let the Marines off their let the devil dogs off their leash and let them work. That's what they're made for. That's what they want to do. And then there's another percentage, which maybe is closer to like a 30 percentage of people who are like, no, it's not our fight. We shouldn't be there. We have issues in the U.S. that need to be solved. We don't want U.S. service personnel dying. We shouldn't put boots on the ground. So uh, hopefully I stirred the pot a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments. Great video, Mr. P Money. That's all I got, guys. I love you. We'll see you in the next one.